I have determined that it is in our vital national interest to send an additional 30,000 U.S. troops to Afghanistan. After 18 months, our troops will begin to come home.
The Obama 1-2 punch, surging in and setting a time frame for which to start drawing down.
A rhetorical whiplash, perhaps, and not a lot of fans on Capitol Hill. Top Line starts right now.
Hello and welcome to ABCNews.com's Top Line. I'm David Chalian.
And I'm Rick Klein.
Each weekday, we're bringing you the very latest political headlines, reporting, insight, analysis, everything you need and want to know about politics.
And keep the conversation going all day long via Twitter. It's twitter.com/TheNote. Let us know what you think.
The morning after. Kick us off, sir.
Indeed. The pitch. One speech down, one big sales job to go. Top administration officials are fanning out to Capitol Hill today to try to make the case that President Obama has the right strategy for Afghanistan. Not a lot of surprises by the time we got through it all last night, but a lot of little contradictions that the administration and the White House has to unpack right now. Why going in means getting out, how you're going to pay for it, and how this fits into a broader strategy that's different than anything President Bush would have pursued.
And last night, I think the country saw him more starkly in that commander-in-chief role than they ever have before. It was a fascinating to look at him, the guy that won the Democratic nomination basically by being against the war, won the election by being not George W. Bush, and sounding very much in some aspects like George W. Bush. Pleasing nobody? That's right. We've got President Obama has Democrats not at all thrilled with the 30,000 troop surge. Republicans a little suspect of this idea of setting a timeline to begin transferring power over to the Afghans. This is where you're not sure the politics, how this will all play out, because Republicans seem to have boxed him in a little bit, supporting the surge but questioning this timeline. Democrats, he's got to be assuming he's going to lose half his party on this.
Yeah, but bipartisanship's not going to be a problem this time around. That's the good news. Some of the loudest voices, I think, are some of the quietest voices. What I read, some of the very muted statements of moderated support, maybe from people like Dick Durbin, close allies of the White House, saying he needs more time to study it. That's really, really striking from someone like that. Healthy starts. The fun part starts in the Senate. We're expecting votes today to begin on the health care bill. And this is where you see Harry Reid in action and how you maneuver to preserve a coalition that may not actually exist right now, how you keep 60 votes intact where you don't even know if you have 60 in the first place, when there's going to be all manner of things that have bipartisan support. But this is such a delicate balance in this bill that any one of these amendments could be a poison pill.
And it also goes to show just how quickly Afghanistan is not going to remain front and center all the time, with the economy and healthcare being high up on the agenda. And Tom Carper's moment. Yes, the Delaware man with the plan. According to a report in the Hill newspaper today, Harry Reid is tasking Tom Carper with coming up with the solution on the public option. He's been out there talking about an opt-in public option in the past. Chuck Schumer revised that a little bit, but now it looks like Harry Reid is going back to Tom Carper and saying, come up with one that gets 60 votes.
This is the right persona and the right profile for someone that can try to solve this, someone who doesn't have a huge ego, has got respect on both the left and the right, and really is willing to share credit with others.
We're going to begin today up on Capitol Hill. Congressman Jim McGovern, a Democrat in Massachusetts, who was already, before the president even spoke last night, came out in opposition to sending more troops into Afghanistan. Congressman, thank you for being here today.
Happy to be with you.
The president clearly stated that the reason he thought he had to announce the plan he did was because it was in the vital national security interests of the United States. Do you not think our national security rests on making sure the Taliban does not reconstitute and create safe haven for Al-Qaeda to plan more attacks?
Yeah, I think what's in our national security interest is to go after Al-Qaeda. That's what we voted for. That's what I voted for after September 11th, 2001. Was to hold those who are responsible for that terrible tragedy to account. Our enemy is Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda moved out of Afghanistan. They're now in Pakistan. So I do not believe it is in our national interest to send 30,000 more troops to Afghanistan to engage in nation building with a corrupt government. I mean, I would like a little bit more nation building here in the United States. But the Karzai government is corrupt. They cheated during the last election. There's no dispute over that. This is a country that's not used to a centralized government, and the centralized government we're supporting is the Karzai government, which I think is incompetent and corrupt. So I disagree with the president's decision. I admire his deliberation. I think that that's something we didn't have in the previous administration. But I think his conclusion is something that I just don't agree with.
What do you think he's missing? These are friends of yours, allies of yours in the White House. What are they not getting right in your judgment? What are they miscalculating?
I think what they're miscalculating is that I think the American people get it. I mean, they understand that investing billions and billions of dollars more in Afghanistan, putting our men and women's lives at risk in Afghanistan, is not the answer. I mean, our fight is with Al-Qaeda. I think the president would have had the support of the American people if he talked about supporting the Afghan people in terms of development aid and economic aid, but beginning a flexible withdrawal strategy to extricate U.S. military forces from that country. And so, I think he ended up going more with the generals, but I think it's the wrong strategy. Look, we're almost bankrupt. How many wars can we fight at the same time? And as far as his exit strategy goes, he talked about the beginning of a strategy to exit. Well, we're still beginning a strategy to exit from Korea. My sense is that he gave himself enough wiggle room so that this could be a war that goes on for many, many, many years.
So you used the Korea example. Does that mean you envision American troops in Afghanistan 50 years from now?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I envision American troops in Afghanistan a lot longer than 2011. I'm sad to say that. But I think the approach here is the wrong approach. Our fight is with Al-Qaeda. We could be. I'm not talking about abandoning the Afghan people, but sending 30,000 more troops, which brings us up to well over 100,000 American troops, in my opinion, is the wrong strategy.
What is this going to mean on Capitol Hill? What are you hoping that you get out of your fellow Democrats and maybe Republicans as well? Are you going to look to cut off funding for the war, to use the power of the purse?
Well, one of the things I hope will happen, and I hope President Obama will embrace this idea, as well as our leadership, and that is that before he escalates our military presence in Afghanistan by this significant number, that we ought to have a debate here in the United States Congress. I mean, this is a big deal. We are enlarging our military footprint, and I think members of Congress have a role here. We should debate this. He should submit a supplemental request to Congress. We should debate it, vote up or down on it, and if he has the votes, then he proceeds. But look, I think there's a lot of anxiety here, even amongst people.
Well, do you not think he has the authority as commander-in-chief to announce this strategy and start deploying troops as soon as this month? You don't think he has that authority to do that?
Well, he may have the authority, but I think that he ought to engage Congress. We've been at this war for 8 years. I think that his kind of interpretation of what we voted for in 2001, I mean, he's kind of stretched, if you will, the intent of Congress. The intent of Congress was not to get bogged down in Afghanistan. The intent of Congress was to go after Al-Qaeda. Those are the people who killed our fellow citizens in 2001. And I think by getting bogged down in Afghanistan and involved with a corrupt and incompetent government, that we are taking our eye off the real fight.
Congressman, you were discussing how you understood and appreciated the deliberative process, and you used that as a contrast to the previous administration. But in terms of the policy that got announced last night and the way in which he laid out his argument, did he sound more like George W. Bush to you than you anticipated when he took office?
Well, I can't imagine George W. Bush ever coming out against torture, and the president made it very clear that he is against torture and wants to close our base in Guantanamo. I don't know what George W. Bush would have done in Afghanistan if he were still president, given the fact that there was no clarity or definition to his policy while he was in office. I will give the president credit for trying to define a mission. I think it's important to have a clearly defined mission, and we need to have some benchmarks and to measure whether or not his strategy is working or not. But I fundamentally believe that this notion of significantly escalating U.S. military presence, I think, is the wrong strategy.
Very, very briefly, Congressman, are you concerned about what this would mean for Afghan women to pull out? That some of the progress we've seen there would go backwards?
Look, I'm concerned about the plight of Afghan women and all Afghans, quite frankly, who live under a kind of an oppressive system, and the Taliban, by the way, is a very oppressive force. But here's the deal: the government that we are saying is going to help solve all this is corrupt and incompetent, and they fixed the election. I mean, does anyone have any confidence that in 2 or 3 years we're going to be able to pass anything over to that government? I mean, look at this. Karzai had a chance, but he blew it, and I don't trust this government to carry out any of the things that he promised.
Congressman Jim McGovern, Democrat of Massachusetts, thank you, sir, for being here today. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.